The idea of inclusion attempts to encompass an educational principle that is just for all children. This video will provide information on the policy of inclusion at JIS and explore the systemic barriers to inclusion, specifically at the Jakarta Intercultural School. Jakarta Intercultural School strives to be more inclusive. It has added to its handbook that students are eligible for admission if it is believed that JIS can meet their emotional, social, physical, and academic needs. However, there are three systemic barriers that are inhibiting JIS from being as inclusive as it potentially could be. The first one is a lack of external services. The second one is parental fears and misconceptions, and the third one is faculty fears. Barrier is the lack of support services in the Indonesian community for students with special needs. This automatically acts as a barrier to inclusion for the Jakarta Intercultural School because there is a lack of external services in the country to aid the school in being inclusive. External services would comprise of psychiatrists, speech and language pathologists, psychologists, counseling services, etc. Research done by the University of Sydney's Southeast Asian Center found that the World Health Organization is drawing attention to Indonesia as it has one of the lowest numbers of psychiatrists for its population. The most obvious way to overcome the issue of a lack of external services is for the school to hire and be able to provide students with these services in-house. However, this is neither practical nor realistic. For when a child requires a psychological evaluation the school cannot provide, the school outsources and recommends the family to psychologists or therapists in Singapore, one that the school has evaluated to be registered, qualified, and has a history of working with the school. Depending on whether the child is required to be physically present for a session, there are situations of overcoming this barrier by using online methods such as Skype. This means that the school can recommend or the family can choose to go with using a more qualified practitioner or someone who speaks a language the child speaks more fluently. Mental fears and misconceptions is a second challenge the school faces while working towards being inclusive. Fear how effective instruction will be, whether their child will receive the attention they require, or that their child might emulate a negative behavior learned from a child with special needs. A great concern is whether having students with special needs included in the classroom might compromise the growth and education of their own child. The misconception about inclusion is that parents of children with disabilities are always contenders fighting for inclusion. However, Palmer, Fuller, Aurora, and Nelson found that anti-inclusion attitudes often stem from parents of children with disabilities who prefer segregation because they're concerned about the lack of individual attention and support and the possibility of rejection. This barrier acts to hinder inclusion at JIS because the administration and teachers are answerable to parents and made a commitment to the well-being and growth of their children. If the school is unable to change the perception of these parents who believe that inclusion could hinder the progress of their own child, this could lead them to rethink their decision of having their children attend JIS. For this reason, it would be beneficial to share evidence with parents that typical children are not put at a disadvantage. In fact, Gupta, Henninger, and Vin found that the mere inclusion of children with disabilities prompts typical peers to become more understanding of and to develop positive attitudes towards their diverse counterparts. They must also explain the makeup of their class sizes, which would include the size of the class and the number of teachers, co-teachers, and paraprofessionals who are trained that would be part of the classroom. Knowing this would ease a parent's mind. The Intercultural School has been established for decades with a prestigious stature in the community and in the world of international schools. The challenge of finding experienced faculty who believe in the vision of inclusion is still an extreme challenge. The truth is that fears about the faculty and finding experienced staff is probably the greatest barrier for a school. Ultimately, if the educators of the school do not carry the same vision or have the correct attitude towards inclusion, it could make or break the program. Administration may also worry about their teachers providing the right type of support as well as being concerned with their ability to co-teach and work with paraprofessionals to accommodate and modify for different learning needs. Moreover, it is extremely costly to train and provide professional development. Therefore, the administration must keep this in mind when working on budgeting. At the Jakarta Intercultural School, exploring how to overcome this barrier is threefold. Firstly, the recruitment process of the school has a requirement for potential hires to have experience working with special education. Secondly, admin must have a separate budget allotted for professional development. And thirdly, staff can also share their expertise and knowledge, evading and addressing the issue of cost. In conclusion, the JIS policy is to be inclusive. What we have come to realize is that inclusion is context dependent, and that every barrier can actually be overcome. The implementation of inclusion is not easy, but it's definitely possible.